Hello, Razzballers. Brent Carlson here with another podcast highlight show. This week I was joined by Craig Bozich, our Dynasty specialist, and Razzball writer and Fantasy Unicorns writer Kevin So. In this podcast, we answered 4 questions from Razzball Nation. If you want to submit your questions, comment below, find us on Twitter, and make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, that way you won't miss any of our videos throughout the season. Enjoy. Hey, Razzballers. It's Brent Carlson, host of the Razzball Fantasy Basketball Podcast, here again on NBA opening night. Just got all misty-eyed watching the Warriors raise another banner since I was born and raised in the Bay Area. We have Craig Bozich from across the pond. How you doing, Craig?
Yeah, can't complain. Not pushing for a trade to the Heat just yet. Not calling you guys all soft. No, I can't complain. I'm all right.
We have Kevin So. He's a Razzball writer, and he also writes and contributes to Fantasy Unicorns. They have a podcast, a blog, a website, great articles. You can find them all on Twitter. Kevin, how you doing?
It's opening night, so I'm doing great. Thanks, Brent.
Yeah, I think we're all psyched. What's your outlook for Brook Lopez for the upcoming season? And that's from Ollie in Australia.
Well, I don't think it's any secret that last year was a bit of a disaster for Brook Lopez. Realistic, I think, to think that he could put up, 16, 17 points in that team. But I think we'll see the usual, we will see solid block shots, probably 1.5 a game. The threes are nice, probably still around that 1.5 to 1.8 mark. But the field goal percentage, I don't think we're going to see it at 50% again, especially in a Milwaukee system. It's probably going to be looking to shoot a few more threes now.
I agree. There's no way he could kind of be any worse than he was last season with the Lakers. He's not going to be a 20-8 guy like he was a few years ago. Somewhere in between. So something like a 17-6, I could see. Again, the 1.5 blocks sounds about right. And I think he might actually push to 2 threes a game, depending on sort of the pace that they push in Milwaukee.
I worry a little bit about the depth that they have at the big man spot. Who was the rookie who was playing really well, Craig or Kevin, with Milwaukee in the preseason? He had a couple big games, and might take
Christian Wood.
Yeah, Christian Wood.
He's not a rookie.
Oh, my fault.
Thon McCurr is a guy that becomes a little bit more intriguing under Bud, because he does, although he's not had a massive impact in the NBA just yet, he is a 7'1" center that is able to shoot the three, albeit he hasn't been very efficient with it yet. But there's definitely some potential there. I mean, I'm not the biggest Thon guy. I love watching him throwing knees against the Philippines. I thought that was great entertainment.
So Chad, he commented from Milwaukee, Kevin, which coaching changes will have the biggest impact on fantasy?
Does LeBron count? I was thinking Borrego in Charlotte might have an interesting impact on that team. I know that they actually had a pretty good pace last season, but he's apparently been running practices with 12 and 14-second shot clocks, which could really give guys like Kemba and Malik Monk and Batum a lot more opportunities on offense if they're really pushing the ball. And even guys like Miles that have been interesting in the preseason, those guys that are, going to be tearing down the court, and I think should have more opportunities. So he's kind of the coach that I think might have, at least from a fantasy perspective, sort of a really big impact on a team.
I worry about guys like Marvin Williams, to be honest. Cody Zeller's another guy. I think the system's not necessarily going to fit particularly well on the offensive end. But I definitely think that the majority of your Hornets, you've got to bump up, just because, like Kevin said, the pace of play was decent last year, but it does have the potential to be so much more and actually really benefit quite a lot of the more fringy draft players, if you like, for fantasy. So, yeah, I totally agree with James Borrego there.
Is there someone else in the front court that you think might be able to step up and produce for this team?
Well, from the offensive standpoint, I think the obvious choice is Willie Hernan-Gomez, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's no secret that he's terrible on defense, but he doesn't need a lot of minutes to do damage on the offense. And I just think he's so much better in transition than what Cody Zeller is.
Willie really couldn't have found himself in a better situation. I was looking at Nick Nurse and the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors, they seem to have a lot of sort of borderline fantasy guys like Van Vliet, Siakam. Are any of these guys under Nurse going to jump out in fantasy this year, Kevin?
Yeah, I'm very interested in seeing what Siakam can do. I think Serge is starting at center now. Is that what they're
That's the
trying
last I
to do
heard.
now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that moves Jonas to the backup.
Yep.
So not too happy about that. I feel like that's not the best use of their talents, but I feel like if Siakam can get in and step in at power forward, I guess Anunoby is also going to get some time at the 4. So I'm not sure how that's going to pan out between the two of them. But you're right; they have a lot of kind of borderline guys that, if they were on other teams, they could be starters.
Craig, what do you think about David Fizdale in New York?
I like David Fizdale. I think he's the right man for the job, and I think that he's doing a really good job of getting the players on side, really believing into the future. He is a real players coach as well, and to have these young guys in a situation where they're playing for, a guy that is going to believe in them and want to develop them, I think is kind of a win all round for, not just the Knicks players, but I think the fans deserve it as well now. So. I'm quite excited to see, watch the Knicks this season. It's going to be another bad season record-wise. I'm not expecting any, big leaps or anything like that. But I do think they're going to be a fun team to watch.
Steve Clifford down in Orlando, he's got a nice mix of young guys and then, some veterans as well, but young guys on the verge of breaking out.
Yeah, as far as young talent's concerned, they have some of the best. When you consider, Aaron Gordon already had some breakout moments last season. He just kind of has to get a little more consistent with what he does. I think we can expect a little more consistency from what he produces on the court. And I think the same thing with Isaac. He was hurt so much last year, but his potential is just out of control. I think he's a guy that could really start producing the stocks categories, hit those threes, and he's probably not going to be a big time scorer for a little while, but I think he's going to do enough in sort of the other counting stats that he's really going to be one of those interesting players to have on your team. That and I agree with you completely on Vucevic. We get into the whole centers that can shoot free throws, and he's one of my targets all the time in that category. He hits threes. Obviously not the greatest field goal percentage, but he's a guy that I like to target in a lot of leagues as well. And then I'm also really interested in seeing what Mo Bamba can do.
I didn't even mention him.
Yeah, he's flashed a lot of interesting skills. And that wingspan is just ridiculous. So he's a guy that, just without jumping, he should be getting 2 blocks a game. So he's a guy to keep an eye on, especially, in dynasty leagues. And
I'm not quite as high on Bamba as most people are. All the talk going into the draft about this, this range that he's got, or, this improving range. I've never believed in the jump shot, and I still don't.
So question 3 is just a quick one. Then the fourth question, I'm glad we have Kevin here for. So Barry in England, Craig, we'll start with you. Do you see Justice Winslow as a bounce back candidate similar to RHJ, Rondé Hollis Jefferson last season?
I don't, I'm afraid.
Who are some, and this is from Miles in Texas, who are some deeper league players who likely went undrafted that we should be keeping an eye on?
Omari Spellman, who was a rookie this year, he probably is not ready for a ton of minutes at this point, but he does have a skill set where kind of has a fantasy-friendly game, gets threes, can get blocks, and with John Collins out the first couple games and Dedmon still out, he's going to get some minutes. I know, Brent, you may not be excited about this answer, but I do like Antonio Blakeney. He's the backup to your boy, and
Zach.
He is a really talented player that is really, really underrated from an offensive standpoint. And it's not like, this summer league or this preseason's been a flash in the pan. He destroyed, he didn't just play well in the G League. he absolutely destroyed it before the Bulls sort of called him up.
They do, obviously like what they see in him, and could be picking up some minutes when Zach hurts his knee next, I guess.
Hey, let's better knock on wood.
I've gone for the sort of the deep option as well. I mean, Pascal Siakam's a guy that if he's out there in that kind of depth league, you've got to go take a look at. I think, we did touch on him, but I think the minutes are going to be inconsistent, but I think that he's going to be a guy that has the potential to use them quite well. Is Ante Zizic. Reminds me a little bit of Willie Hernan Gomez, if you like. It's very good in transition, very good feel on the offensive end around the basket. You're looking at sort of points, field goal percentage, and boards, but he is the kind, I used to watch him a lot when he played in Europe. He was probably one of the best bigs in transition under the age of sort of 25, if you like, in Europe at that time. Really, really impressive. And I think that, if Tristan Thompson goes down, I think there's the potential that Zizic could get that sort of 18 to 20 minutes.
Von Looney, this guy, when he gets a chance, it doesn't take him very long to get 2 blocks and 2 steals. He'll be in the game 3 minutes and somehow have 4 rebounds, 2 blocks, and 2 steals. It's amazing. He's definitely not anyone who's going to score a lot of points. I mean, if he gets you 6 or 7 points, that's a great night. But he's certainly somebody in limited time, maybe even in a 15-minute. If he got 15 minutes, could get you 8 or 9 boards, 3 blocks, 3 steals, maybe an assist or 2. And so I think if you're in a deeper league, he's someone who may have been overlooked just because of Bell and Jones. So thank you guys again. We really appreciate you guys listening. Remember, like and subscribe, comment. Let us know, what your answers to these questions are. Who are your deep league sleepers? We love to talk about it. This is Brent Carlson at the Fantasy Dick on Twitter. Have a good one.